Conversația următoare va fi despre autenticitate ca ideal etic în situații provocatoare. Cazul managerilor de HR. Și I should switch in English or I should switch in French? English, yes, of course. Don't worry, my French is so bad that I cannot really speak like that. O să mă uit așa spre echipa tehnică și o să întreb dacă în momentul de față putem să ne conectăm și să-l avem pe Benoît alături de noi. Și dacă nu, sunt sigur că Benoît ne urmărește deja, așa că o să-i zic hello and it's a pleasure to have you here, Benoît. If you can hear us, we cannot hear you yet, but we will be very delighted when we will do that, when we'll be able to hear you. Oh yeah, now I hear a voice.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. And thank you for being with us. And where are you right now? And what's the time there?
It's just 8 in the morning. I'm in Montreal, and we have got nice weather. Because when I was in Bucharest last week, it was very kind of summertime for us. But when I came back, it was very snowy and very cold. So I get the cold. So Susan, why my voice is still like a little bit cold, but I will try to do my best to be understandable.
So it's not a gift that you had from Romania. It's something that you were gifted when you. It's a welcoming pack, no, that you had there. So now we are very delighted to hear you. Let's talk about ethics.
Yeah, I will share. Tell me if you see my presentation. I will share my presentation.
I'm going to confirm for you. Now we just see you. And now we see the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, my first goal is to explain my field of research is ethical behavior, especially why people do act this way with ethical problem or ethical situation. So I will try to explore which kind of ethical issue and situation can have some time impact in your behavior and your decision. So I would choose HR manager of human resources. Why? Because I think in my research it's a pinball of why people sometimes have got a very deep issue about ethical and moral issue, because they've got to choose, and they are very on the corner when I send my presentation. They are between the stone and the rocks. It's a middle of a kind of internal pressure, but also external pressure. So I did my research also with a manager in finance. I also did some research about ethical dilemma, about people in charge with change management and so on. But I do prefer to present with a human resources manager because I think it's more symbolic and more explicit about how they use some kind of strategy to solve this ethical dilemma. So I will start with ethical issue. It's human resources management, but I think we can transfer this result and outcome to everyone to every kind of branch in a company or private enterprise. So, but the role of vice president in human resources have been explained to have some of goal to manage people with two key dimensions. They have to manage people, but they have to reach, in one hand, the quest of competitiveness, but also to keep this kind of corporate social responsibility, which means we have to promote human inside the organization instead to respect some kind of ethical behavior and ethical procedure and moral outcome on how we manage people. So it's sort of paradoxical management. Can we serve these two kind of master, which mean do we have to focus on competitiveness and also to be, as we said, to stay human in your procedure and to stay human in the way you manage. So a lot of human resources manager and also a lot of managers told me that they've got this kind of dynamics, and it can be paradoxical and also be difficult to achieve. So they decide to, sometimes when they're facing dilemma, they try to focus more on maybe one. Sometimes we make compromise, or maybe sometimes we try to make some transgression. That means, yes, we have got order, we have got to focus on efficiency, we have to focus on organization objective, but also as human resources manager, we are also focused to try to keep a certain kind of ethics about our profession. So this my research start to explore this kind of two dimension, and I try to ask about one situation is very symbolic and very important when you have to decide when you are managing people. And this situation, this event, is called ethical dilemma. So I try to take a definition and to give you like a hint or maybe an illustration of what is an ethical decision. An ethical decision is it's a situation, question and challenge the power of human resources management, and it's very critical. So ethical dilemma confront the human resources management with a conflict of value. That's very important to say so, because sometimes we can have technical dilemma. That means which kind of resource we have to promote. But for the main problem for human resource management, we have to conflict with value. And it also challenges the power of this manager through the solutions they want to adopt in order to resolve this dilemma. So we have got two kind of major problem here. Is like, first, the dilemma, confront yourself with your own value. Does my value apply at workplace? Will help me or not, or sometimes can be an obstacle to decide. And also, what kind of power do you have? Do you have so much power, or at least I've got no power in this kind of situation? So these two elements will be explored with the presentation I will make and with research I've made for a couple of years now. So the first, to give you the discussion and definition about moral dilemma, some people said a moral dilemma is a difficult possibility of choice between two equivalent moral possibilities, which means you have to choose between one or sometimes more possibilities, but it's always difficult to choose because all these possibilities have the same potential and the same kind of positive or negative consequences. Ethical dilemma in management. And I transfer this definition to more applied ethic. It's a problem or a situation or an opportunities that force people to choose between several and bad solutions or unethical decision. You can see the difference between this definition applied in management, and that's we call that the moral dilemma in general about philosophy, moral perspective. I'm not really agree with Trevino and Farrell said it's a bad or several bad solution. I said sometimes you're facing moral dilemma and it's difficult solution or maybe a potential unethical decision you have to make. But it's not always like that. But instead, in ethical dilemma in management, we are facing a situation where we have to choose some solution we are not fully happy with. So we have got a sort of kind of difficulty to choose because it's difficult to apply, and it's not in order to say we have got the same. How you say that? As a manager, I'm not fully happy with the ending or outcomes of my choice. And sometimes some principle of choosing between fair is not unfair is not so clear about ethical dilemma. So it's a situation who give to rise this dilemma include discrimination, sexual harassment, conflict of interest, customer confidentiality, and organizational resources. But it's just a part of it. So when I try to explain, it's when we're facing ethical dilemma, we have got different sources. That's the main problem we just saw in research, but we just has discovered that's a new kind of form of ethical dilemma. The presentation I made today with you, it's try to explore new kind of form of ethical dilemma with to explain who can be applied to human resources manager. So, how did I make this study? I discovered there was two stages of the dilemma, awareness and tension, but I made this study with 15 human resources managers. So I came to see them and I tried to explain. Here in Quebec and in Canada, all human resources managers, have to be a member of what we call an order. So they have to respect a certain kind of rules and deontological code. So they have to manage with very frame and very limited kind of action. They have to take a kind of oath to say, okay, I want to follow this kind of rules and this kind of guide about ethical problem. So what we try to do is to ask them, even so when you have got very frame or very limited set of action, what do you face as ethical dilemma? The first thing we heard that it's a tension between repetition and personal effectiveness. Some people with they have said, okay, we have demands, especially from above, from direction and superior, and sometimes some board of committee of board. So they have to apply or to force us to take some kind of decision where we are not agree with, which means sometimes they force us to take some decision or action, then they are again my own ethics, which means like in the quote, and I quote this human resources manager said, I refused and told her it was again my ethics. But the dilemma for them, this kind of tension they have, do I obey to this kind of vice president, but who are also my boss? So it was one of perspective, one of tension when we found when we asked about this human resources manager. And to the other hand, what we have, and some people said, okay, I live with a dilemma, but it's not personal dilemma. It's just about the reputation and organizational efficiency, which means we have a role to play. We have to be supportive to the organization. But sometimes we have got kind of conflict where organizational value can be against of value, but sometimes as a manager, because we are an executive, we are a member, we have a role to play, we are a member of the board sometimes, we have to convey to this kind of objective. So the thing, we have got a pressure from outside, from our organization, to be sort of not obedient, but to be connected with, or at least to be cohesiveness, to have a certain link with the organizational value. So that's another kind of tension. But what we try to discover is this kind of two demands. The first one, well, do I have to respect my own value? And the side, I have to be loyal to my organization and the organizational values, create a sort of tension between my obligation and my personal conviction. And and I quote this kind of case. They said, yeah, when we are facing this kind of situation, for example, this situation we said, okay, there was a complaint of psychological and sexual abuse, but when I discovered this complaint was false or sometimes misused, so what kind of decision I have to make? So, and to sum up, I put a diagram, if you like, and what we say, sometimes what we discover is there is two times. First, managers have to recognize the dilemma. And the event, the situation very symbolize the ethical dilemma. It's a job termination, which means we have to take a decision and take action to fire some person, a colleague, an employee, and sometimes a secretary, etc., etc. For them, it was a very high demanding action who create for them kind of dilemma. Because for a lot of them, the cause or the motivation to fire or to terminate that job was not very well explained about ethical motivation. Sometimes it was unfair to terminate that work because sometimes it was from a financial or sometimes personal reason to motivate the person to fire them. So for them, event and situation was a job terminated. But for a human resources manager, for them, it was what we call a moral conflict insoluble, which means there is no perfect solution. And between these two tense aspect with reputation and personal effectiveness, and the other side, reputation and organization effectiveness, who create a tension between organizational obligation and personal conviction. So what do you choose? Your personal effectiveness or reputation or the organization? So you have to choose between you or organization. And that's the main outcome we found, that the people have to take this kind of choice between these two avenues, two objectives. And sometimes it's not easy to solve. It's easy to say, it's easy to describe, but it's not easy to try to make a decision. If we go further, what we ask them, how did you solve it, this kind of problem? And what they said, it was very interesting because they said, for me, the dilemma was simple. It was to choose between my freedom or the determinism pushed by organization, or maybe my boss and my superior, etc. So for them, the only way to choose between this freedom and determinism is it's to be to be and to keep my authenticity. And how is it do that? To say, how did you create this kind of authenticity? How can you stay authentic in this kind of condition where you have to choose between you and organization, and sometimes you have to share or to compromise this kind of two things. And to illustrate when they said, I used two sources, Britannic and the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre about a student dilemma. And what we define with a colleague is if I made people, sometimes I've got a set of value and ethics. And sometimes they choose over the time, and they choose for them with principle based on this value and ethics. And it works well for them when they're facing situation. But sometimes, and that's a situation, sometimes what happens, it's what we call ethical dilemma, where we call sort of ambiguity and sort of discontinuity, which means your set of value and ethic doesn't work anymore. And what you have to do is to create and to realize that you need a new set of value and new ethic or ethical system to help you to decide, to give you some kind of principle, or you have to base your decision and judgment. So what we try to do is like what we discovered, that some people who solve this kind of dilemma, who try to find a way to get out of this kind of dilemma, manage to said we just create some moral creativity in order to stay authentic. And they said, sometimes I decide and I choose to consider some value of the organization and also some personal motivation. But I give it some, like, for example, my own perception about what a job or what's a meaningful work. I've changed my mind. And so I create my new set of value and mind about it. And what we create at this hive of ambiguity, this is what we call the hive of dilemma. If you don't choose this kind of moral creativity and you don't try to choose your own authenticity, and it's really funny because some people, a lot of these managers said, I will explain you a case where I failed to take decision, a moral decision about that, when I failed about my ethical decision. And what we call the absolute decision, when they said, I have to choose because I choose some alienation solution, which means it was not from me, it was a solution imposed by someone to myself. I have to follow some kind of obedience, I have to follow orders, sort of. But at the outcome, at the time, with the time, I call that this kind of decision very absurd. Because for all of them, when they explain to us, when we're making this research, the best way to solve this kind of dilemma would to have a sort of solution, not a perfect way, but a kind of solution where in the future, when I see myself on the mirror, I feel good about that. I keep a kind of authenticity about myself, and I still to believe I'm able to create sort of set of value or set of ethics where I'm not proud of, but I can live with it. So what the major discovery was that, but the problem when we ask them, what do you mean by authenticity? What's for you authenticity? And the other thing that we said, we propose in this presentation and research with some colleagues, we call that a building blocks of authenticity. They said, and they try to remind us, and it was based about some author, about psychological author, but also from philosophy, moral philosophy, who help us to organize this kind of block, who describes the best authentic behavior or solution. They said we saw three things. First thing was being yourself. Oh, sorry, I think it was in French. Sorry, I forget to translate. But what does that mean, be yourself? It's like I have to keep a certain core of myself to pass through this situation and to promote a kind of my personal own project. I don't have to give it a certain part of myself, but I can imagine myself in the future, what we call a kind of project. That means which kind of my own personality I have to keep it and to focus on the future. So in order to do that, to be myself, to be myself in total, I have to have a clear conscious and to have lucidity about what's going on in this situation. So it's a manner to be authentic, is to try to be conscious, to have a clear lucidity about what's going on, but to promote myself in order to have a guide or at least an objective. Where are my limits? Where I said, I have to give it that, or in order to keep going.
Benoît,
And
just to interrupt, we are running out of time.
Oh.
So from what I understand from your this slide is that the authenticity is based on being yourself, to be with others in a certain way,
and
rejecting a bad faith. So if you can just draw us some conclusions about, because for sure it's not enough time for such a beautiful topic.
I didn't see. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's my fault. I didn't interrupt you.
No,
sooner.
sorry. Maybe I didn't see the time pass through. So what I try to tell you is like authenticity is not just I decide to do. It's a balance between inauthenticity and authenticity. Like you have to choose sometimes, and it's not so very easy to choose between being yourself with social value, other commitment, and rejecting bad vibes. That means rejecting determinism and alienation. And you have got some risk to do that. It's not so easy. Sometimes you have got more chance in situation to have to provoke. So you have to sometimes to fall into bad faith, alienation, determination. And there is a lot of pressure inside companies to push you into inauthenticity. So you have to be careful. So it's we call authenticity can be a source of stress and anguish. So you have to choose it between the balance. And to finish up about ethic, when you know that's in balance, when you choose to be authentic, so you can, what we said, try to be a leader, and this kind of leadership you try to promote, to be authentic with yourself, include to consider subordinate situation. And you have to choose sometimes between this situation and to prove to be authentic ethical leadership to solve this, what we call just before, this eye of dilemma. What does that mean? To be an authentic leader, which it means you have to sometimes choose value and set of ethics, try to promote, including your subordinate and situation, and just to show the kind of guide on a lead to say, okay, I choose myself in order to be in authentic, but I also show you kind of leadership where I refuse just to be obedient agent or obedient manager, but in choosing myself, I do consider the pressure outside, but I keep myself as an authentic leader, and I keep myself instead to fall into pressure. But I try to stay myself, and to stay myself in order to be still human
Yes.
leader and authentic leader.
This slide, it's like a summarization of everything, and I think it writes down the idea of how important being authentic is, and I think it's a very good conclusion, you know, because at the beginning I had the impression that the subject is super complicated, and the question is, where do you find the balance in what it means to be ethical? But I understand that having this awareness that there is a tension, and then trying to go through this loop, and then going back to authenticity, I think this really helps.
Yeah, there is a lot of research about authenticity, but sometimes authenticity falls down to very egocentric and very selfishness.
You are
aspect.
right, and there is also a lot of pressure of what it means to be authentic. Benoît, thank you very much for your intervention, and thank you for waking up so early to be with us. We really appreciate this topic, and hope to meet you again when you will be in Romania, and to also have
I hope it was helpful.
To remain with us after to the lunch, and we'll not have it just online. Thank you very much for your intervention.
Thank you.